It's been way too long since I last wrote a song, and since they always say the limitation feeds creativity, I thought I would try writing one with the stupidest instrument I own. So this little box is the Korg Monotron, and it's a tiny analog synth that costs somewhere around 50 quid. For you synth nerds out there, it's got one oscillator, one filter, and an LFO that can control either the filter cutoff or the pitch. But put simply, it's a monophonic synthesizer, which means it can only play one note at any time. And the pitch is controlled not with a keyboard, but with this little ribbon controller. Let's start out with a little warm-up jam through my pedalboard. So I've got the Monotron plugged into my pedalboard, and as you can hear, there's quite a lot of noise coming through. So I guess whatever we're about to make is going to have to be pretty lo-fi in terms of vibe. Let's see what we can come up with. We're going to be using a stylus for this for a little bit more precision. Bearing in mind this keyboard here doesn't really mean anything, given that we've got a pitch knob right here. So it's more of a visual guide than anything. Gonna try and get a bit of a pulsing bass pattern here with this LFO. Let's turn it up a bit. Let's make it a bit more. I'm gonna try and loop this. Okay, we've got our loop. So now we've got a high sound. Let's layer that over our bass. So let's start the loop going again. Okay, that was a pretty fun experiment, and I've learned a few things from that. So firstly, not only is tuning precision difficult with that ribbon controller, but timing as well, so we're probably going to have to do a bunch of takes. Also, it sounds super cool with reverb, so let's do lots of weird sweeps and things. And lastly, that fat analog sound is really nice for bass lines, so let's try and do something a bit synth-wavy. It's going to be tricky to get some percussion sounds out of this, so we might have to do something very creative with all of that background noise that it gives us. So that's what we're working with in terms of the hardware limitations, but there's also a few limitations that I'm going to put on myself as a composer. Firstly, all melodies have to be played on the ribbon controller. We can do multiple takes, but it's all going to have to come from there. All that said, we're definitely going to have to use some clever editing and plugins to make this work. Okay, so first I want to get a good bass sound going. This is going to be an absolute pain to try and sync up the LFO to the click track, so let's go the other way around. Let's build it from the bass upwards. Ooh. Oh, we've just stumbled on a good kick drum sound. Let's get that recorded quickly. It's a pretty hefty kick sound. We've got a lot of background noise, but we can work with that. So now let's go for a bass. Let's go nice and low. Okay, so if we just decide that this is going to be our tempo, we've got some bass samples now. I'm going to get a few slow versions of that. I'm going to get it with resonance as well. So we've got some good sounds coming together now. We've got our bass line and we've got slow versions. So now that we've got our bass setting the tempo, let's see if we can sync up to that. Zoom way in on the waveforms. Let's just check that everything is set to not stretch. Clock on this tiny little analog synth. Not 100% reliable. It wanders ever so slightly. Okay, so we've got the bass synced up. I'm going to try and chop it up into song section shaped segments. Let's call that a verse. That can definitely be a pre-chorus. Okay, let's get two of those and call them a bridge. That is definitely our chorus. Okay, so we've got a complete bass part now. Let's get that kick going and see if we can find a snare sound in here somewhere. We've got our kick sampled now, like crunched up a little bit. Okay, so how do we get a snare out of this? I think if we just make as weird a sound as possible and distort it a bit, and then just put a bit of an envelope on it, we might get something that sounds a bit snarey. Horrible sound here. That could work. So if we take that horrible sound and layer it up with some more horrible sound. So if we just line up all of these gross sounds, let's see what we can build out of them. Honestly, not bad. Take all of this, just cut off the end of it. So if we just render that down. It's already sounding distinctly snare-like. That kick and snare sorted. Probably tweak it later if we need to, but see how that sounds under the... Yeah, synth wave time. So, let's take another copy of this snare track. Let's turn this into hi-hats. There we go. We've got our hi-hats going. Yes. In fact, I want to do something a little stupid. Let's put auto pan on that. I do love a stupid auto pan. Okay, we're doing well. Let's see if we can make a cymbal. I think if we just chuck that in here and chuck some reverb on it. Now that we've got a crash, we effectively also have a riser because we can just reverse it. Okay, we're making a lot of progress here. We've got drums, bass, and some basic risers. We need to get some chords in place. So one thing that occurs to me is because of the wibbliness of the Monotron, we might be able to make some weird wibbly chords that you wouldn't be able to make on any other kind of synthesizer. Let's see what happens if we just start building chords. Okay, I've had a really cool idea. I've got some weird chords going on at the moment. And to pin it all together, I've had a really cool kind of vowel-like sound on the Monotron. I'm going to see what happens if we try vocoding that. Make some chords with the Monotron and run it through a vocoder. Let's see what happens. Thank you for joining me for another video. I think you can tell I had a lot of fun with this one. I'd love to hear from you in the comments about any time you've got a surprising amount of mileage out of a very stupid instrument. If you'd like to see more like this, please do click subscribe and click the little bell if you'd like to be notified anytime I put out something new. And until then, I'll see you next time.